on BCTV.
And now your host, Francis Mayer.
Good morning and welcome to Success and Equity on BCTV. I'm your host, Francis Mayer. And today's show, as all shows do, is going to focus on the ways that you can achieve your dreams and maybe get the life that you always wanted via college attendance. Through many different forms of research, we've learned that despite having all kinds of new educational tools at our disposal, less and less and less people are taking advantage of college to improve their lives. Now, at BC, we're doing pretty good. We have actually had an increase in attendance. Students are participating in extracurricular activities. We have a robust drumline program headed up by Tim Heasley. But one other thing we have going on at the college is a thriving jazz culture, and you are a huge part of that. You are Chris Tyner.
I am.
And Chris, you weren't always a guy who. How many albums have you put out for people to purchase of your music?
Oh man, at least a dozen with my own groups, and then probably 40 or 50 more with other artists.
With your groups?
Yeah, with my own projects.
Like the Chris Tyner Trio.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
And let's go through some itinerations.
Well, yeah, I've played for 12 years with a group called the Empty Cage Quartet. We've toured and put out 6 or 7 albums.
Where have you toured to?
Across the country, a lot on the East Coast, a lot up and down the West Coast. We went to Europe once or twice. And then I've got a duo with a guitarist from New York City named Mike Bagetta. And we've been playing for over 10 years. That group is called 10 Bag.
Nice.
Trumpet and guitar. And we just put out our 4th album on my label here in Bakersfield. But we played all over the country as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a tough hustle, though. You are like label executive, travel coordinator, band master.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're doing quite a few things there. That can't be easy.
Yeah, but the projects are collaborative. So in that case, it's easy with Mike and I. We just rent a car and go out, and we share a lot of the workload for the promotion and hitting people up and booking these things. And with the quartet, we've had a couple things on major labels, major for jazz, which is still pretty much under the radar for most forms of popular music. But even then, we all write the music and we all kind of cooperate to kind of make it happen.
Let's take a little detour for a second there. Sure. And you said like jazz lags behind, at least in album sales, other forms of popular music. But jazz is ours.
It is. It was there before rock and roll. It was there before soul and Motown and funk and disco and all that, and it feeds into all of those popular styles. But when you look at like what the threshold is for a pop music album today, like 1 million copies, right? If you don't sell 1 million copies, you're dead in the water, as a pop artist.
You probably haven't made any money on the album. You
1
probably
million copies, yeah. And if you consider the total population, of the country, that's a small fraction, 1 million copies. But for a jazz group, the threshold typically is about 1,000 copies.
Get out of town, really.
That would be your first print run for most jazz albums. So even, to approach like 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, those are like people who are, winning NEA grants and on the cover of jazz magazines and things like that. So it's sort of a sub-economy if you're looking at the total music industry. So people who play jazz don't necessarily do it to get rich. Right.
Right.
There has to be another motivation.
What is it for you?
For me, it's a path that I figured out was going to be my thing from very early on. I was in junior high school and I just developed a love for the music. I discovered Louis Armstrong's music. I'd been playing trumpet in the school band, and my family was all very musical.
Now, on the note of Armstrong,
yeah.
For those of you who aren't familiar with him, and I do feel that Chris and I are doing a little jazz outreach right now, Armstrong would famously blow his cheeks out.
That's the wrong guy. That's Dizzy Gillespie.
Well, I was getting to that if you weren't going to interrupt me. I know
right,
you jazz guys are improvisers. So, okay, yeah, that's a horrible reference then. But I wanted to ask you, is that proper trumpet technique, or do you like to keep the cheeks in?
You should keep the cheeks in.
But if you're Dizzy Gillespie, you can do whatever you want.
Dizzy figured out how to do it, and it was a different kind of sound that he got. You know,
Interesting.
his sound was very unique on the trumpet, and part of the reason for that was because of the, you know, the dissipation of air that he was using.
Wow.
But nobody, you know.
So you discovered Louis Armstrong when you
Right.
were 14.
Yeah, and it just kind of started off this whole exploration for me. You know, and I was kind of a shy kid, very introverted. I grew up in Wasco, and you know, enjoyed creative stuff, drawing and painting, and you know, that kind of thing. I never really fit in with the sports scene and stuff like that. So, but you know, with music, if I had a trumpet in my hands, it was a different scene altogether. You know, that it gave me a way to kind of self-express and to relate to, you know, my place in a group. And that's kind of what keeps me motivated, you know. And I think for a lot of kids who find themselves in a musical ensemble, there's a kind of a magic there and a passion that comes from that experience where you're expressing yourself and you're also, you know, the group is expressing itself, and you know, and there's another kind of thing that you just can't get anywhere else, you know.
No, absolutely. Anybody who has even, and this is taking what you do, which is very, very sophisticated. By the way, Chris, move your mic up just a little closer to your mouth.
Yep.
What you do is very, very sophisticated, but to put it in layman's terms, it's that good feeling that you get when you're gathered around the campfire and somebody's smacking a piece of wood and everybody's out of key, but you know all the words to the song. There is that feeling of kinship you have doing that collaborative effort with other people.
Right.
And that's very cool. Did you think when you were younger that you were ever going to be able to make a life out of music? I mean, it's a tough racket.
Right.
And even when you're talking about the thresholds of success for album sales, you're talking about selling 1,000 records.
Right. And
I
that's just making your money back, you know, on your investment, basically. No, I mean, I for me, it was about the music. And, you know, when I got to the point where I was old enough to know that I wasn't going to get rich doing this, but that I was too much in love with it to stop. My models were, you know, teachers that I had in my life, people like Doug Davis out at CSUB, who, you know, was always inspired me to pursue my own creativity in music. And he himself was an example of that, was a model of that. You know, his music is just on a completely other level. If you've ever heard anything he's written for the symphony orchestra, that was another moment that just kind of blew my mind like a strike of lightning, you know, that you could teach and you could share the music that you do and still be creative and still pursue that and not have to, you know, sell yourself out just to make a living off of it.
Right. Not that writing, you know, television jingles isn't spiritually rewarding, but
Right. I've done that too. It's fun.
yeah, it can be fun. Absolutely. Have you done some local stuff or?
Yeah. I've done a lot of commercial stuff. Not so much anymore because that's, you know, the teaching kind of takes care of that.
Yeah.
The need to, you know, bring a paycheck home.
The need to, yes.
But yeah, it is rewarding, and I respect the people who can do that, you know, because it's to be able to create something on the spot to meet a need, you know, that you know represents a product that you know puts a company's name out there. We're just starting a commercial music program at Bakersfield College that's going to, you know, really bring in a lot of students. We hope that have that kind of a career path in mind.
Well, we'd love to commission some music from you for our shows that we do in-house. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. With jazz, it's another thing though, because it's you know, it's a process of self-discovery that happens in the music, you know, immediately as you play it.
Why is that? How does that happen?
Well, it's music that is created on the spot, right? So it's improvised. And there is that freedom in the music. I mean, Duke Ellington, whose music we focused on last year in the jazz band, I made a big point to share with the students that he didn't even use the word jazz. You know, he called it freedom of expression music. Sometimes he called it the American idiom.
Really?
But most of the time he just called it, you know, freedom of expression. When people asked him what he thought about jazz, he refused to talk about that word.
Wow.
So the fact that you can put something together and bring it to a stage and on the spot create the other half of it, you know, that wasn't there on the paper. But that experience of performing in front of an audience and expressing yourself sort of completes the equation.
Right. So you go into it with I guess, because I'm thinking about Bitches Brew. I got into that album in the last year after my son was born, actually. He really dug it, actually. And that there is structure to it, but then there are spaces within the music for you to improvise. Is that a correct explanation, or does it start from note one?
There's many different ways to do it. You can go in with a plan. You can go in with sort of an outline of what's going to happen and then fill in the blanks. You can base your performance on an existing song, or a lot of mainstream jazz is kind of taking an existing American songbook type standard and then improvising layers over the top of that. But just really a willingness to experiment with the material and let it work itself out in real time. You don't find that in many other art forms.
No, you don't. And I would submit that one of the most vital pieces of training that I've ever had for everything that I do in media is improvisational humor. Because when you're standing in front of a room full of people and someone says, "Why are you wearing a banana on your head?" The only thing that there is natural to say is that you're worried about the guy on the stairs using you as a step again, and you're going to teach him a lesson this time around.
Yeah, and hopefully you have something in your bag of tricks that you can pull out at that moment.
Yes.
Or create something that's going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, it could go a million different directions.
Right.
We're going to take a break right now. We've got another guest coming up. I'm going to check with our production team. We're making a little jazz this morning, Chris, so I appreciate your flexibility. Stick around. We're going to talk about how people can get involved in music, and we're also going to check in with one of the most impressive women that I've ever met on campus. I stopped her while she was heading into a yoga class because I wanted to talk to a re-entry student, a person who is coming back to a college after a break, and, she blew what little hair I have back. Don't go anywhere. More Success in Equity TV is up next.
Probably juggling like everything in my life, like social aspects, schoolwork, keeping the grades up, trying to find a job, like all the financial stuff, because school costs a lot of money, and you got to make money to be able to go to school. So, all that stuff, and like hobbies and all that, like basically just keeping everything in your life in check and try not to lean too forward to one thing or to the other. Like basically stuff like that is really hard to do.